Hey guys, welcome back to Math with Marilyn. Before we get started, make sure to grab a pencil and paper so that you can take proper notes as you follow along. Today's topic is using indirect measurements to find the missing lengths of similar triangles. So, in our example that we're going to practice, it says that Becky cast a 7-foot shadow at the same time a nearby mailbox cast a 4-foot shadow. If the mailbox is 3 feet tall, how tall is Becky? All right, so what we're being given here are two similar triangles, and because they're similar, we can set up a proportion to find what Becky's height is. And this method is called using indirect measurements. Indirect measurements allows you to use properties of similar polygons to find distances or lengths. And the type that we're actually using in this example is called shadow reckoning, which, as I've mentioned already, allows us to write a proportion that compares the shadows of the lengths and heights. So, with all that said, let's put that into action and find out how tall Becky is. All right, so we're going to set up our proportion. My proportion is going to be set up. I'm going to do height over length. You have to be consistent with how you set up your proportion. So when I say height, you're doing the height from this first one, and then so I'll have H. Obviously, my proportions, if you're not familiar with what a proportion is, I should have said this before we started. A proportion is two fractions set equal to each other. So I'm going to have my height in the numerators of both of my fractions. So I'm going to have H here because that's Becky's height. And then over here, I'm going to have 3 because that's the height of the mailbox, right? All right, and then in the denominator for my length, I'm going to have from this first triangle, my length is going to be 7 feet. And then over here, my length is going to be 4. So again, you want to make sure that you're consistent. If you're doing height up top, then from one fraction and the other fraction, you want to do height. There's another way that you can set this one up. You can also do, I'll just do it to show you, and to show you that either way we should come up with the same answer. You can actually do H over 7, and you can set that equal to 3 over 4. So honestly, it's just a consistency thing. So if you start one fraction this way, then the other fraction needs to be done that way. So you just want to be consistent. All right, so once you have your proportion set up, then one of the strategies to solve this proportion to find out what the value of x is to cross multiply. So I always like to draw kind of like what looks like an X, just as a reminder that when I'm cross multiplying, I'm multiplying my 7 times my 3 and then my H times my 4. So this is going to give me 4H equal to 7 times 3, which is 21. And then because we're familiar with solving equations, I know in order to isolate my x, or to get x by itself, I'm multiplying. This means 4 times h. So the opposite or the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So in order to get x by itself, I need to divide both sides by 4. All right, so here those will cancel, and you're going to be left with h equals 5.25. Let me scoot this over a little bit. All right, so her height is gonna be 5.25 feet. All right, and let's just double check since I presented it. If you set the proportion up this way, let's just double check to make sure we'll come up with the same answer. So again, you're gonna cross multiply. So we'll have 4h, because it's 4 times h is 4h, and then 7 times 3, I'll put 7 times 3 here, it's 21. And then just like in the example above, we had to divide both sides by 4, which gives us h equal to the exact same thing. So as you can see, as long as you're consistent when you're setting up your proportions, you should come up with the same answer. But just remember, in math, there's always multiple ways to solve any problem. So just find out the method that works for you and stick with it. All right, so that was just a quick tutorial on using indirect measurements to find the missing measurement in similar triangles. All right, the quick review on setting up proportions and using cross multiplication to solve them. So hopefully this tutorial was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them below this video. Make sure to like the video and to share my channel, Math with Marilyn. Look forward to you tuning in next time. Thanks.